I got a little breaking news story actually here late in the game about a game. Might get everybody ready for the holiday season here. You will recall that there was in fact a scandal, according to the media, over a bunch of West Point cadets at the Army-Navy game, a hallowed American collegiate and military service academy tradition. And there were people that were claiming some of the cadets were doing white power symbols. Oh, the white power symbols. Everyone has to get so scared. This is terrifying. Because the media has been telling people that there's a huge rise in white power, white nationalism, all this stuff. The media's been telling everybody because Trump is president. That's what they have all been saying. By the way, how many of you have seen like big white nationalist rallies out in the town square? How many of you have seen an actual rise in white nationalism in any meaningful way anywhere in America? Just have you seen this? I'm sure the Southern Poverty Law Center has crunched some numbers that are trying to claim that there's been a huge spike in. But they always say this, right? This is the Southern Poverty Law Center is a left-wing attack, a left-wing group meant to attack conservatives. Now, it doesn't actually really monitor hate. It manufactures the belief that there's a surge in hate so they can get a lot of donations and then they can attack conservatives on behalf of libs. I mean, that's really what they do. But there hasn't been the surge in white nationalism, but people have been conditioned to think that that is what is going on in this country. It is very unfortunate. It is very troubling that we are told this, that this lie continues to get credibility from the media. But they said that these cadets were doing white power symbols, and a lot of people said, no, these aren't white power symbols. This is something called the circle game. Well, they did an actual West Point investigation of the hand gestures at the Army-Navy game. And it turns out the school says the cadets were playing the circle game, which is the equivalent of made you look. But news outlets ran with this as white power gestures because they would prefer, really, they would prefer the validation of their hysterical, non-evidence-based belief that the country is having a surge of white nationalism, a surge of neo-Nazism and all this. The media wants people, they'd rather have evidence for that, even if it meant that we have members of our service academy who had adopted a disgraceful and an evil ideology. They'd prefer that circumstance. It's quite clear. They leap to believe this, even though there was a far more innocent and far more plausible explanation, which now, based on the true the in-depth investigation of this, the innocent explanation was the explanation, which is what here we are once again. How many times do I have to come on the show and say, guys, I'm sorry, I was really wrong on this one? Although, watch, I'm going to have to buy Jesse Kelly a steak because Pelosi's going to hold back the articles of impeachment forever. But that would be, it's all right. That'll give me an excuse to hang out with my man Jesse Kelly. But it's just why is it that I knew the Covington kids weren't the bad guys? How did I know that? Why is it that I knew the West Point guys here weren't doing white power symbol? How did I know that, Jussie Smollett was lying? How do I know that Trump wasn't actually a Russian stooge and a traitor to his country and that Russia collusion was The mainstream media gets this stuff wrong over and over and over again. I'm just a guy sitting here, producer Mark, doing our thing. How often do I have to come on? Have I ever had to come on this show and say, wow, I missed this one by a mile? I mean, like a little political prediction here or there, but who's going to win a race. But I'm talking about where judgment is involved because nobody really knows who's going to win a given, Senate race or, who knows. But I'm talking about on these issues where you can look at it and you should understand right away which narrative is overwhelmingly likely to be right and which is overwhelmingly likely to be wrong. And the libs get it wrong over and over. And they've got thousands of reporters and all these people. They say they're just trying to present the facts all the time, but they can't help the essential fact that they have certain narratives like a tape that keeps playing in their head, and they look for affirmation. It's confirmation bias in reporting, really, but they look for affirmation of these narratives and whatever they put forward day in and day out. That's what they want. I look at these things like a person that tries to weigh fact, probabilities, history, motivation, all these different things and come up with, yeah, I don't think that there were a couple of guys, for example, on the south side of Chicago carrying a noose around, spraying whatever it was, like lighter fluid on somebody and yelling, this is, or it was bleach, not lighter fluid, yelling, this is MAGA country at 3 o'clock in the morning, and just happened to like lightly bruise Jussie Smollett's face. By the way, they're thinking about bringing Jussie Smollett back on the show Empire. Give you a sense of the consequences that guy faces for that national sham. But how did I didn't believe that. I didn't believe it. Sure enough, the Covington kids, I didn't believe it. Brett Kavanaugh, I didn't believe it. What? Right, over and over and over again. Why? Well, because I approached this from the perspective, the advantage that conservatives have is we try to see the world as it is, and we try to apply facts, logic, and reason to our judgment. And we also embrace the humility of the fact that we are inherently, as individuals, flawed. Our judgment can be flawed. We have biases. We try to counter those biases. Liberals believe, and this is a major psychological separation. This is going to be true as we continue to do this show. Liberals believe in the infallibility of their belief system. They think, and it's really a political system in place of a religious belief for many of them, but they think that what they have been told is righteous and good and true is unassailable, that it is true without any proof, without any understanding of the foundations of why it is true. And they have these narratives about social justice and about economic justice and about the need to counter whether, colonialism or a history of racism or, the centrality of abortion to women's freedom. And there are these storylines, these narratives that they've been told that they cannot deviate from, because it really does feel like it is taken much more as a religious belief. The word made true through leftism. That is what they view, or that is how they approach their politics. I approach everything every day with, could I be wrong? Might I have missed this one? Is there some? And I'm sure many of you feel exactly the same way. Is there this gaping wealth inequality problem that is the result of donations from high dollar donors, and is the Chamber of Commerce really just a chamber of cronyism within our capitalist system? And I try to retest these assumptions and look at them, and I always leave open the possibility that maybe I am wrong. I mean, I even said maybe with Jesse Kelly, my man, talking about that we've got a stake riding on this one, but is Pelosi going to hold on to those impeachment articles forever? I don't think so, but I could be wrong, and so I leave open that possibility. Liberals have, unfortunately, and this has been the course of their belief system, I think, really all along, but now we see it more clearly in certain ways than we did in the past, because they've been able to gain enough power to implement some of these things. Liberals believe in an absolutism. There can be no moderation, deviation. There can be no finding a middle ground. It has to be their way, or else injustice, travesty has resulted from it. You see this with the way they approach LGBTQ issues, for example, with J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling is now in trouble because she says that men are not women. There are people who will yell at you. There are people who will challenge you on the statement that men are not women. They have been brainwashed. This is as clear a test of brainwashing as you could find for anything. If I tell you that 2 + 2 = 4 and you yell at me because you have been told that is not true, you've been brainwashed. There's not really an argument to be had here. This is just a question of facts and reality. But they don't see it as such. This is where you get Menstrual Equality Act. We're going to have now tampons and sanitary napkins put in men's bathrooms. I mean, all these are, and when you start to ask questions about this, they react with rage. They react with rage because they haven't been told the philosophical underpinnings of why this is true. They've just been told this is what the good, smart people believe, the good liberals believe, and they're very emotionally intertwined with these beliefs about themselves, about the people around them. And they haven't had to, because they usually live in, a political monoculture. They live in a place that's an echo chamber for their beliefs. They've gone to schools that do that. They watch media that does that. They read papers, if they read papers, that do that. They've never had to wrestle with or challenge their own assumptions. And that's how you get to this place. And that's also why the news media is so pathetic when it comes to falling for hoax after hoax after hoax, because they sit there and they say, here's what I believe to be true. America is a racist society. America is a classist society. The white patriarchy is the root of most social evils in America. And so every news story that they see, for example, they pull and they put into that framework. That framework is unfortunately false. And so that's why they just keep getting these things wrong, because they see it through the lens of somebody who believes that the biggest problem, no, we do face, we face problems of addiction. We face problems of people turning away from God. We face the breakdown of the family. We face major problems in society. The white patriarchy is not the root of all the social ills that we should be concerned about. But the left takes that as an article of faith. And so the moment that you try to get away from that, they cannot compute. It's like you've tried to override the whole system, and the screen freezes, and they freak out. The West Point kids were not engaged in white power signaling. They were engaged in the circle game. They were just having some fun. And the news media leapt to smear them, to slander them, to perhaps ruin their lives. Fortunately, in this instance, the truth came out soon enough and early enough that everything seems like it'll be okay. But the media has learned nothing since Covington. They've learned nothing since the Duke lacrosse rape hoax. They've learned nothing since the UVA fraternity rape hoax. They've learned nothing since the Kavanaugh gang rapist hoax. They've learned nothing from any of this. In fact, all they try to do is learn more effective and dishonest tactics of the propagandists so that they can get around facts that are inconvenient to the narrative more effectively next time. And this is why, unfortunately, we have only one choice, and that is to defeat them on the battlefield of ideas. Convert them if we can, but if we can't convert them, we have to defeat their ideas, because their ideas are destructive and wrong. There's a Christmas message for you.
Transgender community has been marginalized in every way possible. And one thing that the President of the United States can do is lift up attention, lift up their voices, lift up their lives. Here's a promise I make. I will go to the Rose Garden once every year to read the names of transgender women, of people of color who have been killed in the past year. I will make sure that we read their names so that as a nation, we are forced to address the particular vulnerability on homelessness. I will change the rules now that put people in prison based on their birth sex identification rather than their current identification. I will do everything I can to make sure that we are in America that leaves no one behind.
Here's what she said. I was really trying to follow this. This was from the debate last night. It felt like a good follow on what we were just talking about the framework that liberals put everything into this country and the way they approach it. And Elizabeth Warren is a doctrinaire leftist. I mean, she the doctrine is strong with her on the left, you could say. She knows the lingo, she knows the approach, she knows the arguments. And I do think that she's a true believer. Keep in mind that liberals, one of the benefits of being a leftist is that you get to embrace hypocrisy as part of the package. You can be a hypocrite as long as you are advocating for certain things that leftists want, and you get a pass. Which is why hypocrisy is really the Achilles heel of so much leftism, because they espouse ideas that they themselves would not adhere to. They want policies that they don't want to be subject to. But she says here's a promise I will make. I will go to the Rose Garden once every year to read the names of transgender women, of people of color who have been killed in the past year. What is that supposed to accomplish? To read the names of people of color who have been killed in the past year? Is it only, and I asked this, I don't know, only transgender people of color, or just people of color in general who have been killed? And killed under what circumstances? Is she going to go read the names of everyone who is an innocent who is killed? Is it going to be just people that are killed in an exchange with law enforcement? I'd want to know what the specifics are here, because I also would want to know, what does she hope to accomplish by doing this? One thing that you will constantly hear from the left is that there is a a particularly high rate of people of color who are transgender in addition to their ethnicity who are killed, and that this just shows that there's a national emergency around this. Then you look at the numbers, and by the way, Andy No got in trouble for this, for just sharing that it's actually a very small number of the overall population, that when you look at it on a per capita basis, just step back from this for a second, there is no surge or there is no greater threat of people who are people of color who are transgender being killed than there are on the general American population. So you ask, well, what are we? I mean, yes, it's terrible when any human being is murdered. It's a horrible crime and always has been. But what's with the focus on this? Well, because when you add people of color and people who are transgender, you have two protected groups, two victimized and marginalized groups in leftist parlance. And to add those two things together, you have a great you have effectively the perfect case of a kind of political martyrdom, right? Because if someone's transgender and they're a person of color, you add those two things together, the intersectional belief here is that there really is a hierarchy. It's almost like you get victim points for different places where you are on the scale. If you're transgender and a person of color and something bad happens to you, that is a much more compelling case for action, regardless of the circumstances of what happened to the person, than if it just happened to a person who wasn't transgender and a person of color. Meanwhile, when you look at the statistics on this, it does not bear out at all that there is some surge in attacking or hurting those people, killing people who fall into that category. But it's still a talking point you'll hear on the left. And it's largely because people like Elizabeth Warren, who live in fancy neighborhoods, are worth millions of dollars, and don't spend any time with people who are of color, transgender, and particularly in some cases of some of these murder cases that get raised, there are people who are working in the sex trade who are people of color, who are transgender, and they also happen to be prostitutes who have suffered violence. Elizabeth Warren pretends to have a great affinity for and connection to these individuals. This is classic leftist virtue signaling. She's going to go and just read off the names. She says, to what end and for what purpose? To raise awareness about a spike in hate crimes against these individuals. That's not a spike. And then in some cases, it's not even necessarily a hate crime. It's just a crime. But this is who you're dealing with Elizabeth Warren. It's just, she is in many ways the distillation of left-wing orthodoxy put forward for the American people to see without all of the distractions, say, of Bernie Sanders' peculiarities. That's one way I think we could describe it.
It's time for roll call.
It is indeed time for roll call. But I just want to say one thing I left out of the rest of the show. There was this interview with Barr where he talked about Attorney General Barr. This is kind of a late, I guess it's like a mulligan for the show here. Attorney General Barr talked about the scope of the investigation that Durham, the attorney for the state of U.S. Attorney for the state of Connecticut, is engaged in, and it is wider in scope than just FISA. It is wider in scope than just the FBI, and they're going to be looking at John Brennan. I like to make fun predictions, or not fun predictions. I like to make predictions. We're going to find out that John Brennan his fingerprints were all over this Russia collusion hoax. John Brennan, Obama appointee, close friend of Obama's, worked with Obama in the White House, and was Obama's go-to person on counterterrorism. You're going to find out that John Brennan, this is my prediction, I can't prove this quite yet, but Brennan was deeply involved in the Russia collusion hoax from the earliest stages and worked with foreign governments to try to get this thing going. That's what you're going to find out. So remember how many times I had to come on the show and say I'm wrong, sorry, I missed it. You heard it here, my friends. John Brennan. That's going to be a name that's going to get a lot more. It's been kind of focused on Comey for a while here because Comey was the implementer of the hoax at the FBI, but the originator of the hoax, I think you're going to see, and you're going to see through the Durham investigation when it's over, is John Brennan. And Clapper with kind of an assist, but Clapper was too dumb to come up with this stuff in the first place early on. All right. Roll call. I know. I just want to throw that. And producer Mark, let's mark this one down because I want to know. Let's let's have this ready so when the Durham thing comes out, we'll be like, here we were, last show of the year, and this is what I said. I want this because this is a prediction I feel very
At least
confident.
this one's easy to remember.
Right.
Usually you say that, and I'm like, there's like 15 of these in every show.
Right, I know.
So,
but
this one I'll remember.
There we go. So let's just have this one so we know when the Durham report comes out, last show of 2019, I said, this is what you're going to see.
When's that going to come out?
3 months.
Okay.
They say.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll both remember that.
Whatever. Somebody listening, the team remembers.
That's true. The team. That's what the team is for.
The team is for. The team always remembers. They're like, actually, Buck, the North remembers. Game of Thrones reference, man. Game of Thrones. What a sad finale. That whole thing. It was really just. I knew. I
never got into it.
You
never got into Thrones. No. I think I'm the only American that didn't.
I feel like I should change my Twitter name to Buck Sexy for a few days, just in honor of Grandma Ethel.
You can't.
You know.
You'll lose your verification.
Oh, really?
If you change your handle, if you just change your name, you're fine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I can't lose the blue check.
Yeah.
Oof, that'd be scary. I don't know what I would do with myself. All right. Last roll call of 2019. But before I get to it, one more proviso, one more preface. Those of you who listen to the show on radio, you will miss Buck's Buck should learn to speak English. You will miss Buck's special birthday message on December 28th. And it's a real thing. We recorded, even producer Mark with that, I recorded a little special mini show.
Your birthday's on the 28th, but it'll be coming out the 27th.
Thank you. It'll come out the 27th of December. We have a little special show that all of you are going to want to hear. But you have to subscribe on the iHeart app or the iTunes, Apple Podcasts. I keep saying iTunes. Apple Podcasts is what the cool kids say. You have to subscribe to the Buck Sexton show. So that's the way, my friends. That's how you gotta get it done. So those of you, and if you've never listened to a podcast before, I'm hoping that this Christmas season, what do I want for my birthday and for Christmas from the team? New podcast subscribers. That's all I want. Tell people about it. Pass the buck. Check. It's so easy. It'll be on your smartphone. You can listen anytime you want. Listen in the car. Listen while you're folding laundry. Listen while you're doing whatever you got to do. Putting some presents under the tree. All that good stuff. All right. We have Cindy. Writes, Buck, don't listen to the person who said stop your impressions. You are so funny, and yours are far better than other beloved conservative talk show hosts who will go unnamed. You somehow capture the person's personality and character. Go Buck. Well, thank you, Cindy, and I will agree with you. My impersonations compared to like the top, if you have like the top 10 conservative radio hosts out there, very few of them can go toe to toe with me on the impersonations. There's like one or two who might even be in the conversation. A lot of them are pretty great people. I love them. Pretty weak on the impersonations.
Though, Buck, I do know a couple of conservative hosts that do great Muppet impersonations.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. I think producer Mark is being sassy. So, let's see. I'm just going to leave that one. We have Aaron who writes, Buck, I grew up in a small town in Orange County, New York. I had family and friends who worked in the city. My father's best friend was in the electrical union in the 80s, and he was just saying to my mother that Trump would come and talk to the workers all the time. He often found himself in the elevator with Trump. He said Trump was really nice. He always asked how he was doing and showed a genuine interest like that to all the workers. The thing that leftists don't get is that Trump isn't an elitist. He's not a phony. I believe Trump truly cares about this country. He didn't need to do this. I admittedly didn't get around that the first time around, but I do now, and I cannot wait to vote for him in 2020. I can't wait to chant 4 more years, 4 more years. P.S. Producer Mark sounds just like my father's friend. I love his sarcastic sense of humor. It reminds me of home. Make sure you keep him around. Happy Hanukkah, Mark. Merry Christmas, Buck, and happy birthday. That's a really nice note, if I may say so.
That was fantastic. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Or ma'am, I didn't get the name.
Aaron with an E-R, so it's a lady.
Lady.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because Aaron can go either way, but it's usually spelling-based.
Yes.
E-R-I-N is lady.
It's usually a female,
A-A-R-O-N is dude.
Yeah, but it's Aaron or Aaron. You don't say it the same.
Really?
Yeah, I say Aaron.
Aaron or Aaron? What
Aaron.
do you mean? Aaron.
Aaron or
you say
Aaron?
Aaron?
Well, it's with
For
an
a dude?
A. Aaron.
Yeah, but Aaron. Oh, I don't know.
It's the A or the E sound.
Aaron? I have to.
I mean,
okay.
I don't go like that. I'm not pretentious. But
that is true.
I don't know anyone named Aaron though, like with the A.
All right, cool, fair enough. I'd really be, this is from David, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this from the conservative treehouse. Thanks for the work you put out there. I don't know what the conservative treehouse is, so I'll have to take a look at this. I do not know. John, right. Part of me feels grateful to Obama. I think without him, the left wouldn't have been exposed, and I don't think we would have ever been able to elect Trump without having first elected Obama. What are your thoughts on this? Was Obama worth it to Trump? Hashtag Team Mark. Dude, people are just throwing in hashtag Team Mark sometimes now in a little solidarity with our producer over here.
See, I'll say to everyone that's Team Brandon, you're outnumbered. If there was an election, I'd be Trump. I'd win.
If this were Sharks and Jets, we got to see. Oh, Nick writes, the conservative treehouse was the kids show on the Blaze? Producer Nick? That's right. No, it isn't, Nick. That's Liberty Treehouse. Just because we work together at the Blaze, don't bring your weak sauce Blaze knowledge up in here. You know I remember. That's the Liberty Treehouse, not conservative treehouse. I call out producer. Happy Merry Christmas to you and producer Nick, by the way. Let's see. Mike writes, hey, Buck. It's Mike from New Zealand. Sorry I was a little mean about producer Mark in my previous message. Shields high. P.S. I love the Hans Gruber imitation you did a few months ago. The "oh God, you're one of them" scene where he pretended to be a hostage caught by John McCain and gets a cigarette from him. Hilarious. You're one of them. You're one of them. I remember that. Yeah, that was good. That was good times. You can tell they're European by their clothing and their cigarettes. And see, if Mike from New Zealand likes you, producer Mark, so he's just being a little salty. See, now you've even got some people that are
apologizing. I'll welcome anyone to Team Producer Mark.
There we
anytime.
go. The door is always open for Team
is.
Producer Mark.
I'm not as grumpy as everyone thinks. I'm very friendly.
That's right. He is friendly. Let's see here. Next up is Robert. Shame on Obama. He did not send any javelins when Russia was invading and stealing Crimea. Good thing Donald 45 walked in the door on day one with total flexibility. Stand against China. Leave Hong Kong free. From Robert. Robert, shields high. Good message. Good to talk to you, my man. I appreciate it. Greg writes, hey, Buck, I was listening tonight and was reminded that producer Brandon likes ketchup with grilled cheese. I do as well. I'm 55 and discovered it at around 12 or 13 and haven't been able to eat a grilled cheese without it. Go, producer Brandon. Fairly new listener, about 2 months. Love the show. Well, thank you, Greg. We haven't gotten you to weigh in.
I agree 100%. I love ketchup on grilled cheese.
Oh, wow.
Can you eat one without it?
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, I would prefer a tomato soup.
That I can roll with. I like tomato soup with grilled cheese. But ketchup? Are you barbarians?
What's wrong with that?
I don't know, man. That's that's just not done.
All right, say you have a hamburger.
Yeah.
You put ketchup on that, right?
Yeah.
It's like a cheeseburger without the
There's
burger.
There's meat in there.
So you're allowed to put ketchup on meat but not on cheese? I don't understand.
I would even go this far as to say if you were having a grilled cheese with like grilled chicken in the middle, or something, which I guess at that point it's basically a panini, which is a fancy name for a grilled cheese.
Is grilled cheese, bacon, and tomato.
Interesting. Would you put ketchup on that?
Depends on my mood.
Really? Yeah. I got to tell you, I've become a mayo guy in my old age. Ugh. I love mayo. I look for excuses to put mayo on things.
Two things that will make me vomit even at the smell: mayonnaise and peanut butter.
That's the weird. I don't even know where you're from.
I don't know why.
I don't know how that's possible.
Those two things disgust me.
That's crazy to me, man. I love peanut butter. I actually prefer almond butter because I'm bougie like that.
Sure.
But that doesn't surprise you.
I've told you about the cookie butter.
I'll even have a little cashew butter sometimes. Yeah, I know. Seriously, I only eat cashew butter though when I'm wearing my top hat and my monocle. So anyway, David, first, thank you for your service to our country. I've been watching your show on Pluto for about a month. Well, thank you so much, David, for watching. Appreciate that. Pluto TV, channel 248, the first. Secondly, interesting that Elizabeth Warren did not take her second husband's name. It would reveal her nature. Warren Mann. She is promoting the war on men. Also, I don't know if any journalists or media talk about how unfairly sided many of the Democrat wiki pages are compared to Republican. Thanks again, David from Philadelphia. God bless. Well, maybe the team can restore my Wikipedia page because the lib activists keep tearing it down. Someone decided that they were going to keep deleting my Wikipedia page. So, team, if you want to build one for me, that'd be great.
Isn't that technically my job?
No, I think
Does that
like
fall?
people just anyone can do it.
Yeah.
But we had fans create a Wikipedia page,
Sure.
and then the libs tore it down. They said that it was, it didn't count or something. There was some lack of sourcing.
You're
I'm
not
like,
famous enough?
I mean, it's like there's people on there that you've never heard of, anyone's ever heard of.
You just use the sources of bucksexton.com, and then it should work.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Buck Sexton show on Wikipedia, but it should
Yeah.
just be Buck Sexton. Damn it. All right, but if someone got mad at me for saying "damn" as a curse, I don't think that counts as a curse. I think we got to like have
On the
some.
radio?
Yeah, no,
No.
definitely not curse as in like I can't say it, but like I don't even think it's impolite to say.
No.
GD, I won't say, but
Sure.
just damn, I think you're allowed to say.
Yeah.
right?
I mean, what do you prefer?
I mean,
do people prefer darn?
wouldn't Jesus be like, people would, damn thee unto hell? It's, I mean, like, this is their,
They spoke a lot differently.
Yeah, well, I was Aramaic. I mean, it was Aramaic, right?
I
Or
have
Hebrew?
no idea.
Aramaic,
That was probably Hebrew, actually.
right?
Yeah, because he was Jewish.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Good talk. Let's see here. Eric writes, first of all, you look like the program manager in WKRP Cincinnati without the blonde hair. Second, you can still play CDs in any DVD, Blu-ray player, or PC laptop with a drive. Shields high. Is that true? You can play an old school CD in a DVD player?
It's just finding a laptop, a DVD player, yeah, but finding, I think he's talking about like a laptop.
None of my
Exactly.
laptops have a drive
Finding
anymore.
a laptop with a CD drive is impossible.
You know what also I've learned, and this has happened to me a few times at recent holiday parties, when people come up to you and I always appreciate, as I said, when people come up to me and they want to talk about my work, but sometimes people come up, if they ever say, I just have a question for you, they don't have a question. They want to give me a speech
Yes.
for somewhere in the 5 to 10 minute range at a crowded event. And I always want to tell them, look, if you want to ask a question, that's great. If you want to have a quick chat, that's great. But if you want to say, I have a question, and then I get to hear your version of Castro's speech about the latest sugar harvest, which lasted about 4 to 6 hours, depending on the day, I do have things I have to get to sometimes.
Was this at our company holiday party?
No, of course
Okay.
not. Our people don't. I'm talking about some social ones that I've been to where people say, but whenever they start with, I just have a, if someone comes up, they just want to talk, that's always fun. It's when they say, I just have a question for you. That turns into like, so when I look at what Newt Gingrich did back in 1998 and blah, 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 it's never actually a question.
That must be the worst part about being a public political figure for you, right?
No, I mean, I'm down to talk to anybody.
I know you like to talk to people, but the random people who just want to drone on and on and on to you and waste your time.
It can be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
And in social settings, it can be a challenge
Sure.
because I'm there to say hi to everybody and talk to people. And
Exactly.
Be nice. I'm not talking about a radio event or something. That's different.
Yes.
I mean, when I'm at like a normal cocktail party where I'm just a visitor trying to like get his tequila on.
When you're not radio host Buck Sexton.
Correct. Exactly. Anyway, it is what it is. Oh, man, the last segment of the last show of the second decade of the 21st century of the Buck Sexton Show. Wayne writes, hey, Buck, I'm a regular podcast listener. Never miss an episode. I have a new name for the drive-by media. Do you remember TASS? It was the press agency of the Soviet Union. Totalitarian Activists Supporting Statism, we could call it. An acronym to bunch them all together. Indeed, sir. That's clever, and thank you for listening on the podcast. I appreciate it very, very much. Leo, who was the author on tonight about the long history of progressivism? His first name was Michael. Very interesting discussion. Michael Malice. We'll have Michael back. In fact, I think I'm doing his show sometime soon, so that'll be a fun thing. He's a feisty little fellow, but we do enjoy chatting with each other. Karen writes, Buck, heard you talking about Chick-fil-A and how you only get the chicken nuggets. I, too, have celiac and was thrilled to learn that in Massachusetts they have gluten-free buns from a real bakery at Chick-fil-A. Wow. I went to try it out. The bun was pretty good. I wasn't too impressed with the chicken, however. My best experience was at Uno's Pizzeria. The gluten-free pizza is so good. I had to ask 4 times if it was actually gluten-free. Well, anybody from the celiac community, if you're ever in New York City, the best gluten-free pizza in New York City is Keste, K-E-S-T-E pizza. It's amazing. It is like you will eat the entire pie. Don't think about the fact that you've eaten 1,500 calories or something.
Legitimate question. Is cauliflower crust gluten-free?
Yes, it is indeed. Yeah.
I've had some great ones.
Yeah, no, there's
That's
very
just
good ones.
being health conscious.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. But that's a very good option for
Yes.
folks. The cauliflower crust is delicious, and it definitely gets it done. Speaking of getting it done, the show is done. You do have, though, a special birthday message coming up December 27th for my birthday on the 28th. If you want to hear it, you have to subscribe on the iHeart app or Apple Podcast to the Buck Sexton Show. My request to all of you is for my birthday present and for my Christmas present, get one person to start listening to the show who hasn't before. With that, it's been a wonderful year, everybody. Have a great Christmas, a great New Year. Happy Hanukkah. Thank you so much for being a part of what we do here every day. 2020 is going to be our best year ever. I can assure you of that. Until then, shields high.